Okay, in this video, I'll be showing you how to use the draft feature in SOLIDWORKS. There are kind of two main ways that you'll be using draft in this class. One would be what I call an embedded draft, which is what I'll show you first. And then the other one will be where you actually use the draft feature itself right here. So the embedded draft is where you'll use it in a different feature, generally in extrude. In fact, I don't know if you'd be able to do it in any other feature except in extrude. So I've got this circle here, and let's say I want to extrude it 4 inches and I want to apply a draft to it at the same time. And so what I'm doing is I'm embedding this draft into the extrude feature. And so I can just hit here, which says turn draft on/off. And here I can just change the degree. There's not a whole lot of variation that I can do here. It's just as simple as changing the degree measure. And so this is for a very simple draft. You can notice that this circle here, the blue on the outside, is what was the original size of my sketch. It was 4 inches in diameter. And then as I change the degree measure, you can see the yellow on the inside shows you kind of that preview. You can get to the point where you're drafting it to where it's just got zero geometry here. But you're probably not going to want to do something like that. Another thing you can do, let me show you, is you can hit this draft outward, which will, as it is self-explanatory, it will draft it outward. And so you can see here the difference between the draft inward versus outward. Okay. And so again, that's an embedded draft, one that's embedded directly into an extrude for a really simple draft. So all you have to do is, while you're doing your extrude, come down here and hit this draft tool. Okay. And then here we'll switch over to this other part in order to show you how to use the draft feature on an existing part. So this part was created with an extrude. And I'll show you how to use the draft feature here. So you come up here to your features toolbar, you go to draft, okay? And we're only going to be using neutral plane. I won't say you won't use these other ones in this class, but you probably won't. Most likely you're just going to do everything with a neutral plane draft. And so what you do there, let me turn this down a little bit. You select your neutral plane, which basically means where do you want to measure the angle from? And so I want to measure it from this front plane here. And then you select the faces you want to draft. And so I could draft all the faces at the same time, but if I wanted to do that, I would have just done it in the extrude. So let's say I only want to draft these 2 faces here. Okay, so I can select those 2 and hit the check mark, and you see what happens. Pretty simple. If I want to edit that, I can, obviously I can change the angle of that. If I had some edges here that were curved, I could change to propagate along the tangent, and that will just propagate that draft all the way around. Another thing to note here is you can run into errors, or let me back up for a second. Let's say I change this neutral plane to something else. Let's say I change it to this top face. Totally doable. Notice the difference. Okay, not much of a difference there. But now it's just that it's measuring from that top face instead of this front plane. I can run into errors here if I were to, for example, select this face here. Oh, sorry, let me delete that one. If I select this face as my neutral plane, I'll run into errors because this face here is parallel to that plane, and that's not going to allow you to do that. It has to intersect somewhere. And so if I delete off that face 2, you'll notice that I can now complete that draft, and it will just draft this one because it intersects that plane along some sort of line. I can also select this face here, and you'll notice that it will draft it. And that's because if I were to extend that face infinitely, it will intersect that, that other face or plane. Okay. And so this is a way that you can draft things after the fact. And again, this is generally going to be used if you only want to draft certain faces rather than the whole part. If you want to draft the whole part, just go ahead and embed it directly into your extruded feature by doing the draft there. Okay.